Mental health matters now more than ever.
People across Mid-Michigan opening up and sharing their stories of grief, resiliency, and hope.
They want you to know you're not alone.
Presented by Community Mental Health Authority of Clinton, Eaton, and Ingham counties.
Welcome to our mental health special. It's part of our commitment to let you know you're not alone. I'm David Andrews.
And I'm Ann Emmerich. You'll meet first responders, people in the LGBTQ community, college students, and even a marathon runner who literally ran for her life.
All have had struggles and success with their mental health. But we begin with a powerful display to bring awareness to our war heroes and their struggles.
Each day in the United States, 22 veterans take their own lives. Deanna Giles talked with veterans about why this could be happening.
It's the number of veterans who lose the battle against the inner demons every day.
The battle that some veterans lose every day is no longer on the battlefield. It is a battle they fight after returning home. And the 22 crosses in the Riverside Cemetery lawn signifying the lives lost every day. American Legion Post 55 historian Al Smith says these numbers cannot stand.
These, your sons and daughters, you ask them to go put their lives on the line and cash a check, including their life. And when they come home, we need to take care of them.
According to the American Addiction Center, the suicide rate for veterans are 1.5 times higher than that of the general population.
PSD is a very real monster that haunts many, many veterans. You tell someone to go over and fight and, possibly, with the idea of giving up their own life and to taking other life. And then you bring them back, take the gun out of their hand and say, okay, now be normal.
Marine Corps veteran Garrett Hockey says suicidal thoughts have crossed his mind before, but says he was able to navigate it. He says another contributor to suicide may be that men are taught to not talk about their emotions.
And then you get someone from the military, Marines, Navy, we're the toughest of the tough, we're brave, we don't need emotions. So, it's kind of hard for somebody to get the help. Since we're not supposed to feel it anyway. Suicide essentially is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Hockey says you can't change the past, but you can make plans for a better future.
And that was Deanna Giles reporting. And while veterans lay it all on the line, there's another group that leaves home and doesn't know if they'll return to their families. We're talking about our first responders, police, firefighters, and medics.
That reality carries a lot of mental stress and pressure. I learned about one effort to keep first responders mentally well long after they respond to our emergencies. More now on the Yellow Rose campaign. Every time firefighters climb into a fire engine, what they'll face next could be traumatic.
We always say things that we cannot unsee.
Delta Township Fire Chief Greg Ginnebaugh says what firefighters, paramedics, and police see on the job has contributed to a rising rate of suicide.
And as those numbers started getting more public, people started realizing we need to talk about it more.
And this T-shirt, available to firefighters across Michigan, is part of that effort.
Just stopping the stigma and asking for help.
Suicide prevention is just one component of the Yellow Rose campaign. From the pin on the chief's uniform to the sign out front.
It's to indicate to anybody in the fire service that happens to be driving by, if they need somebody to talk to, they know it's a safe place.
And for those who work here, mental health is a top priority.
Well, when I started nearly 30 years ago, it was not really talked about.
Captain Ken Barnes says it used to be a do the job, suck it up, you'll get over it mentality. But that all changed with the Yellow Rose campaign.
People are willing to talk about things. They're not hiding it because we've all been through things.
You don't talk about it, then you hold on to it, and then it just eats at you.
Chief Ginnebaugh says firefighters who hold on to the mental stress of the job could end up paying for it later with failed marriages, substance abuse, or suicide.
We want to give them access to help long before they get to that point.
Whether it's his listening ear, a conversation with fellow firefighters, or a meeting with a mental health specialist, Chief Ginnebaugh says he wants all his employees to know help is available.
Our focus on it is removing the stigma of asking for help.
I've actually utilized it myself not that long ago.
Firefighter Corinne Fiala says instead of keeping the stress of the job bottled up, talking about it is a major mental health release.
Unloads
Unloads everything, yeah. So it's nice to be able to sit with people that kind of know what you're dealing with and just to talk.
Our goal is to make it so it's common practice that people are comfortable talking about it, like, hey, I'm struggling with something, can you help me?
We have a list of mental health resources for you at WILX.com. Click on the You're Not Alone tab, then click on Mental Health Services in Michigan.
They're not your first thought when it comes to first responders, but they are also on call 24 hours a day, and they are under a lot of pressure. Coming up, hear about the challenges facing members of the clergy.
We trust them to guide us through celebrations and sorrows. Members of the clergy are facing more demands than ever, and it takes a toll on their mental health.
I talked with 3 local pastors, and there is a common thread in how they stay mentally fit. It's something we all can learn from.
Below that is stained glass window.
You may not think of them as first responders, but religious leaders are there when we need them most.
It can be a little daunting. People come with a variety of challenges.
We have to be ready to be on at any time.
Our job is to help. It is to heal.
3 pastors with 3 perspectives on what it takes to lead a congregation while caring for their own mental health.
It's challenging in ways that we take on some of that weight and some of that burden because we care about people. And when someone is hurting, we tend to hurt.
Isn't everyone sort of feeling more stressed and anxious? The world is tough right now. Sure. I don't think, maybe the lesson of that is that we're not immune, that certainly faith and ministries does not protect us from that.
I go through the exact same thing that the parishioners that I pastor go through. The only difference is if they express what they're going through, it's totally okay. But if I express the things that I'm going through, it's viewed as he's weak.
Religious leaders say ministry is hard, and it's getting harder. One recent study found nearly 13% of clergy members have been diagnosed with depression. Compare that to the 8% of American adults that are diagnosed with depression every year. And it's no surprise that religious leaders are emotionally, physically, and mentally exhausted, either burned up or burned out.
And I did experience that. Had to make some adjustments in order for me to have the kind of time for self-care.
Pastor Terrence King is open about his bout of depression. When he realized he needed help, he leaned on his wife.
And then I have a tight circle of friends. Some are pastors and a couple are not, that I can go to and just kind of share my thoughts and feelings.
Reverend Donna McNeil is healing too. She serves students at Michigan State University and was among the clergy members who responded to last year's mass shooting.
Like most clergy, I also have a therapist, and I pray a lot, and I have a spiritual director, and those were really, really critical for me over the last year.
For Pastor Javon Catlett, the suicide of a 14-year-old girl in his congregation pushed him into therapy.
That was the first time I ever had to really sit myself down and say, I need help, and I need to kind of put some distance between the ministry and my own personal health.
Ignoring mental health needs can lead to tragedy. A report released in 2021 during the pandemic found 12% of pastors have considered suicide. Add in the other aspects of running a church, and it's more important than ever for our clergy to take time out for themselves.
Sometimes we have to say no to things in order to be the most effective within the capacity that we've been given to serve.
It's a hard gig. It's not news that church participation and membership is declining, and and that itself is a stressor.
There's no S on our chest, there's no cape behind our suit jackets. We are human.
And they all stress that very point. And while many of us put them on a pedestal, religious leaders say they're just like us. They ask for grace when they need time for themselves, and above all, prayer.
Coming up next, Michigan State University rolls out a high-tech tool to help their community with better mental health. Learn all about it straight ahead.
Mental health apps are on the rise. Many people are turning to tech for instant relief from everyday stress. Now students at Michigan State University have a new website connecting them with the help they need.
The university is offering the free anonymous website that provides peer support wherever they are. Mars Anderson talked to students during peak stress time, final exams.
The final days of fall semester on the Michigan State University campus means final exams. For freshman Anthony Lo Cicero, the pressure of doing well is constant.
I just took probably my least confident final of the week for calc. I don't know, it's been a lot of trying not to let the score that pops up on the sheet be a reflection of me.
Junior Abby Sinisco says she also feels the pressure, but knows when to give herself grace.
Giving myself breaks from schoolwork and reminding myself that self-care is just as important as a good grade.
Both students agree mental health has grown in importance. MSU is partnering with Platform Together All to offer peer-to-peer mental health support to students. Sinisco sees therapy as a tool.
Some people might be embarrassed to go to therapy because, like I said, they don't think it's like a big enough issue to go. So to make it a little bit more anonymous, or you don't have to see someone face to face, might make a lot more people comfortable with the idea of it.
While Lo Cicero counts on his fraternity for support.
I think it's more organic if you join a group that's kind of based around your peers and then you discuss mental health with them.
The university says Together All helps with anxiety, stress, and depression. Students can form groups, have one-on-one chats, and get resources to understand their feelings, set goals, and track their progress.
On a mental health social media platform, you're going to satisfy that urge to be with people online, but also gain from it.
Go out of your comfort zone and maybe just give it a try, and you really have no idea what the benefits could be.
And that was Mars Anderson reporting. Together All says registered mental health professionals monitor the app around the clock. Students interested in the anonymous peer community only need their MSU email to sign up. Together All is free to students and only for students. They're able to talk about what's on their mind, get support and advice.
It's already tough to be a kid trying to navigate the changes that come with growing up, but those challenges are often tenfold for LGBTQ kids and teens. Riley Connell has the story of a Mid-Michigan nonprofit giving gay and trans kids someone to lean on when they need it most.
Acts of violence, hate crimes, social media. It's these factors and more that advocates say are damaging the mental health of LGBTQ youth.
They may be in a community that doesn't support them, a school that doesn't support them, a society that shuns them.
Christine Turpening says she didn't come out of the closet, she crashed out. The road to acceptance wasn't easy, but she made it. And now she wants to help LGBTQ kids make it too. A 2021 study by the National Institutes for Health found that 65% of LGBTQ youth had considered self-harm, while 73% had considered suicide. Statistics that drove Turpening to form her own nonprofit organization.
If they have one rock, those statistics go way down. So I immediately, it was in my head, I'll be your rock.
I'll Be Your Rock offers support to LGBTQ youth in rural mid-Michigan towns. Mentors from the community, called Rocks, bring members together for different events, hoping it helps them find acceptance.
I think that's my favorite part, is just sitting back sometimes and hearing the laughter and watching these connections.
Working with LGBTQ youth in public schools every day, I'll Be Your Rock educational liaison Cassie Tin says she's become even more aware of what's contributing to their mental and emotional struggles.
When they are constantly seeing this media presence that sometimes questions the importance or validity of who they are, I think that can be especially damaging for the youth. And so they need groups.
Groups like I'll Be Your Rock. whose presence in a number of rural Ingham, Eaton, and Clinton County communities has inspired new Pride events, like Vermontville Pride, led by Turpinning.
You just need the people to step up and say, we're here, and we're not going to tolerate hate, ignorance, and not being inclusive anymore.
Bringing Turpinning, Tin, and the I'll Be Your Rock team one step closer to making sure every LGBTQ kid knows they're not alone.
That was Riley Connell reporting. And if you're looking for mental health resources, we do have a list at WILX.com. Just click on the You're Not Alone tab.
More people needing mental health services. Too few places able to handle the number of patients. Coming up, hear how one major healthcare system is handling the mental health crisis.
University of Michigan Health Sparrow is sounding the alarm about the desperate need for mental health services and the growing number of people affected by mental health issues. Tanaya Jordan spoke to the hospital's behavioral health team about critical gaps in mental health services.
My son has been diagnosed with mental health challenges since he was 2.5.
Rakara Riddle says ever since the diagnosis, she's been looking for mental health resources that actually help her young child.
Just really trying to get him access to the care that he needs to be able to identify what he has going on and then also learn coping skills to be able to deal with those things.
Riddle says her son has a sensory processing disorder.
And so he has a lot of sensory needs, high input needs. So for instance, there are some proprioceptive needs where he needs a lot of mobility. He needs a lot of deep pressure, so tight hugs.
This crisis not only affects patients, but along with a critical shortage in behavioral health caregivers, it also poses significant challenges to health care infrastructure and the delivery of care overall.
Health Sparrow officials say the hospital supports a bipartisan bill that requires insurance companies to cover mental health and substance abuse disorder treatments. The hospital currently has 9 therapy dogs and has already opened a new health clinic at Grand Ledge High School, helping students address their mental health needs.
1 out of every 5 people in the community, but in our hospital, 1 out of every 3 or 4 people who are in the hospital are suffering some mental health overlay, even above and beyond the medical problem they came in to treat.
He's done a lot of aquatic therapy, he's done occupational therapy.
Taking steps to close critical gaps in mental health services.
Thank you.
That was Tanaya Jordan reporting. The University of Michigan Health Sparrow plans to put 120 behavioral health beds on the site of the former Lansing Eastern High School. A spokesperson for Community of Mental Health says they often end up sending people to places like Grand Rapids or Indiana because there is a lack of beds for adults and children here.
You know, sometimes just a cup of coffee can get the conversation flowing about mental health.
Claudia Sella shows us how some first responders in Jackson are turning to each other to put out their own fires.
Firefighting is an inherently dangerous job. You have to have the ability to trust the individual to your left and to your right that could potentially have your life in their hands with decisions that they made. Trust is a very, it's a sacred word in the fire department.
Firefighters put their lives on the line every time they leave for work. Every time there's a call for help, firefighters are willing to risk it all to save lives. Deputy Chief Tim Gonzalez of the Jackson Fire Department says that comes with a lot of stress. Stress that make things like trust a lifeline for saving lives.
Firefighting, law enforcement, EMS, it is definitely a different line of work because you see so many different things throughout your career. And the things that you see, the things that you do can add up over time. Fostering those relationships early and being able to trust the person that you work with is incredibly important in this line of work.
But that can only be done if conversations about the tough stuff can happen. And in a field where toughness is seen as a virtue, sometimes that can be a challenge.
People that come to this profession, type A personalities, hard chargers, and with that too, you have that of, you know, bury it down deep and move on to the next.
Though Gonzalez says it doesn't always have to be that deep.
You have a cup, and everybody's cup is different. Some are bigger, some are smaller, but they all fill up. And yours might fill up a little bit more than mine, and mine might take a little bit longer to fill up. But the ability to empty those cups every once in a while allows us to keep doing the job.
Sometimes the best way to empty your cup is with a coffee cup.
So I think that's what that coffee table really helps, is be able to empty that cup every once in a while. It's not when you need help, but you're able to talk about it before you need help. Just as if you and I are friends, I don't call you just when you need help. I call you, just check in. How are things going? How's the life?
Talking with peers who get you. Talking with coworkers that know exactly how you feel because they were there. They've been there.
And what you're thinking, what you're feeling is normal, and coming up with ways to solve them, and coming up with ways to make you feel like what you're saying, what you're doing, have the ability to make a difference.
Gonzalez says being a team where peer support is top priority makes it easier to do the job they came here for.
I, fortunately enough, was able to be hired at a department where I grew up, just down the road from, so that makes it even more special. To work with a group of firefighters, men and women, and strive for a purpose to make the place safer, and have a ton of fun while doing it.
That was Claudia Sella reporting. And if you or someone you know struggles with their mental health or substance abuse, we have a list of resources and helpful tips posted on our website, WILX.com. Grab your phone, scan this QR code on your screen, and it will take you right there.
Lansing police are taking steps to better understand the LGBTQ community. Hear about their unique training when we come back.
Traumatic brain injuries can impact every aspect of a person's life, from thinking to feeling to moving.
They're often called a hidden disability, but as Aaron Bowling reports, you don't have to go through it alone.
A life-threatening injury with permanent consequences.
My head hit the cement and it sounded like a baseball hitting a baseball bat.
Over a year after that painful moment, Christine Kanashevsky was diagnosed with a damaged pituitary, often referred to as the master gland, as it's responsible for many bodily functions. Her symptoms fluctuate and range in severity, forever changing the former pastor and physical therapist.
It was devastating. You're so isolated, and so many things you used to do, you just can't do anymore.
She found herself unable to do many things the way she used to, like cooking, driving, going to church, and much, much more. In search of someone that understands, Kanashevsky approached the Alive Center in Charlotte about starting a support group.
The first night I was just like, God, just send one. And he did, he sent one. I think I was like on cloud 9. Like I went home and I told my husband, I'm like, one person came and it was great.
That one person was Dan Hughes, who suffered a series of head injuries that placed him in the severe brain injury category.
Brain injury is the most cruel injury on the planet, and nobody can see it. Even though you're around people, you're alone. When you come here, that lifts.
They say since that first meeting, the group has evolved into a supportive family where experiences and helpful tips are shared.
You always get a hug when you come in, you get a hug when you leave. We talk about various topics, but one of the topics I brought up one night was suicide, and everybody in the group had either contemplated it or had attempted it.
A topic where just talking about it can save lives, and they now talk about it at nearly every meeting.
I want them to feel like this is the one place that I can say it and we all understand it, we get it, we've all been there.
Feeling less alone in the battle with the mind by having those who understand it best right by your side.
It's really important because you feel so alone.
And that's the one thing I think I've had to come to grips with is life doesn't look the same as it did before my injury. It looks different, but that's okay. There's no reason to give up.
That was Aaron Bowling reporting. People in the LGBTQ community are 3 times more likely to end up behind bars than the general population.
Lansing police took steps to help bring that number down, and they reached out to an LGBTQ group to guide the way.
We've been in a lot of these close games, but we got to finish it and battle, battle, battle.
When it comes to basketball, East Lansing High School girls varsity coach Tori Brooks pushes her players to do better. As a Lansing police officer, she sometimes has to push a disabled car off the road.
15.
A 7-year veteran patrolling the streets, Officer Brooks has faced both physical and mental roadblocks.
I would say that's probably my biggest roadblock, is just I had to be not worried about what others may perceive or think about me.
Officer Brooks is openly gay and has been a driving force in educating her fellow officers about the mental hurdles some people in the gay community deal with, especially when encountering a badge.
Maybe they truly did not know that maybe something they were saying could be hurtful or upsetting to somebody else.
Educating her colleagues about LGBTQ name and gender pronouns to take the mental anguish out of a police encounter isn't lost on her boss, Lansing Police Chief Ellery Sosby.
So anybody that comes and champions that and is willing to step up and be the face of not only LPD but the gay community is very honorable.
Chief Sosby's proactive approach to building a bridge with Lansing's gay community began 2 years ago, when dozens of officers took part in a week of sensitivity training.
We wanted to make sure that the LGBTQ plus community understood that we were sensitive to their concerns.
Mental health concerns for the LGBTQ community include discrimination, homophobia, and transphobia. All might be contributing factors to a survey done by the Trevor Project, which says LGBTQ people are incarcerated at 3 times the rate of the general population.
We thought the Lansing Police Department was great.
Linda Sarnelli is chairperson of Suits and the City, a networking organization that promotes the interests of the LGBTQ community in Mid-Michigan. Her group led the sensitivity training, which covered everything from terminology to traffic stops. An open line of communication all about raising awareness.
We also talked about the fact that there's a higher proportion of mental illness among the transgender, partly perhaps because of the stigma.
And Linda speaks from experience. She's a transgender female.
So we wanted to get that awareness to the police officers. We also wanted to interact with them, get to know them.
Linda says the sensitivity training revealed just how many members of LPD are also members of the gay community, like Officer Tori Brooks.
Sometimes openly gay people feel more comfortable talking to somebody that identifies like them, right?
Whether it's fighting crime or fighting the stigma of being part of the LGBTQ community, Officer Brooks has a simple message.
I do just want people to remember, like, we're no different than anybody else.
The sensitivity training developed by Suits and the City for the Lansing Police Department is available for other organizations as well. We have their contact information in this article on WILX.com.
And again, we do have a comprehensive list of mental health resources right at your fingertips. Just scan the QR code that you see there on your screen with your smartphone.
If anything, I went back and forth with my own mortality. There were periods where I didn't care. I wasn't going to harm myself, but I did not care if I died because the pain was so immense.
Coming up next, we'll hear from a mother who talks about the pain of losing her daughter, a beauty queen, to suicide. Losing a child is heartbreaking. It can be especially so when your child takes their own life.
Rochelle LeGrand spoke with one mother who turned the pain of losing her daughter into passion and purpose.
Engaging, beautiful, and real.
Those are the words April Simpkins uses to describe her daughter, Chesley Christ, and many others would agree. Chesley was Miss USA 2019, an accomplished attorney, an Emmy-nominated correspondent for Extra TV, and a role model for women across the world. But behind the crown, behind the court, and behind the microphone, she fought another battle with persistent depressive disorder. On January 30th, 2022, Chesley Christ died by suicide. The news rocked the universe, but it hit hardest at home.
There's still this feeling that this is not real. This is not really happening. You could feel this tiny hole that was growing larger. I'm the mom and I'm usually the comforter, and here were my boys trying to assess what was happening. I could not slow myself down enough to even talk with them. My heart hurt, everything hurt.
April was also one of the very few people who knew what Chesley was battling. She talks about her daughter's first attempt with suicide.
She made first runner-up. I remember the look in her face. I can vividly remember that moment and how hard she cried. We went to the bathroom. She pulled herself together, she composed herself, and was just so gracious.
But after her daughter's death, April started battling depression herself.
If anything, I went back and forth with my own mortality. There were periods where I didn't care. I wasn't gonna harm myself, but I did not care if I died because the pain was so immense.
But she found comfort in fulfilling Chesley's last wishes. In a text message to her mother the morning of her death, Chesley asked April to publish a book she was working on. Early this spring, April published By the Time You Read This, The Space Between Chesley's Smile and Mental Illness. It's currently on the New York Times bestsellers list. The book details, in Chesley's own words, her career highs, but also her battles behind closed doors.
I need to live. I need to live for so many reasons. My husband, my children, Chesley still needs me.
The book also includes an excerpt from April about how she's managing her own depression. She's using the book, the Chesley Christ Foundation, and NAMI, all to honor her daughter's legacy. NAMI is the largest grassroots mental health organization. They have over 700 state and local affiliates nationwide, including right here in Lansing.
It's such a lonely thing when you lose a family member, or when you have a family member that has a mental health condition. You feel so isolated. And so our job is to break the stigma about that, to reduce stigma around mental health conditions and around suicide as well.
That includes talking about grief in the many forms it comes in.
Grief is also part of the process of when you have a family member that has a mental health condition. They may be still here, but you're grieving that person's challenges in life.
April is a national ambassador and says she is proud of the work that NAMI does.
Several things I love about NAMI. Not only do they provide a laundry list of education and resources on the website, they break that down for people like me who are parents, who are trying to understand and navigate mental illness. And you don't know what to do. You don't know what that looks like. And NAMI provides a high level of education and then resources through their website.
April Simpkins wants other parents to know that they too are not alone.
Your love was enough, but our love isn't everything. And when you realize that you gave all that you had to give, truly, there's a level of acceptance of a decision that child may make that you will eventually understand and learn to live with.
And that was Rochelle Legrand reporting. If you or someone you love has a suicide plan, please go to the nearest emergency room. You can also call the crisis hotline at 988. There's someone there to answer your call around the clock. We also have many resources on our webpage under the You're Not Alone section.
It was so kind of emotional and difficult, and I didn't tell anyone what I was doing while I was doing it. I think people just thought I was kind of nuts running all these marathons.
Coming up, the story of a Boston Marathon bombing survivor who faced her fears through exposure therapy. That story is straight ahead.
A DeWitt woman is on a mission to help others face their fears. It came out of one of the most notable terrorist attacks in U.S. history. The bombing at the Boston Marathon killed 3 people and injured hundreds.
Taylor Gattoni shows us how this marathon runner literally ran for her life, turning trauma into triumph through a journey that took her around the world.
April 15th, 2013. Bombers attacked during the Boston Marathon, carried out by two brothers. The homemade bombs, planted in backpacks to express their anger over wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. 26,000 runners ran for their lives. Stacy Menapace-Dietzel was among them.
I was quite close to the bombing, and when I got home, I was really struggling. I couldn't be in any large group.
Oh, hi, Stacy. You're almost there.
To cope with her anxiety and her fear of crowds, she chose to push past fear and pull in strength by leaving her footprints across the globe.
I just decided I was going to put myself in every major marathon.
Stacy has raced every major marathon and on each of the 7 continents.
I did not think I wanted to run more than a mile, ever.
That 1 mile has now turned into more than 341 miles. Stacy's marathon mission started with her potentially needing leg surgery. Instead of surgery, she chose to strengthen her legs through running.
I needed to get up and move.
At first, moving meant getting off the couch.
I couldn't be in a parking lot. It was really bad. I couldn't sit in a restaurant. And I knew there was a problem.
After the bombings, Stacy was terrified to run, but knew she needed to do it over and over to face her fears. She also wanted to help others, which led to her getting involved as a nurse case manager who uses the practice of exposure therapy.
I also think it's important to share with other people in case they're stuck, because it's easy to get stuck. And I want other people to know that you can keep moving forward.
Moving forward sometimes meant taking 2 steps backward and landing on the couch again.
I always say, give yourself a day if you're having a rough day, and maybe even 2 if you're having a third day. You need to talk to somebody.
At first, Stacy hid her feelings from family and friends. And now through her experiences of trauma and caring for others, she recommends people seek professional help as their first step toward healing.
I probably would have recommended counseling, which I did not do back then.
For Stacy's mission, she decided to keep running. Her first big marathon race after the bombings took place in New York.
They were looking for bombs under the bridge, so I'm on the bridge, and helicopters above, like really low, and all I could think about was they're going to bomb this one too, and I took off.
It wasn't easy taking steps forward.
And got to the end, and I bolted like I ran. I wanted to get away from the finish because all I could think about was it was going to blow up.
Now Stacy carries her circle of fear around her neck, igniting her determination like a match and giving her something to laugh about.
We have an inside family joke about me, and I just seem to think things tend to blow up around me.
And sometimes there is no laughter.
I was really angry that it affected me that way because I couldn't do what I wanted to do.
Dealing with different emotions, what she really wanted to do was run and run and run.
I think exposure therapy really works when you're ready to do it.
Like being ready to share her story along the Lansing River Trail, where her running and mental health journey began.
That hardest step is the first step.
And that was Taylor Gattoni reporting. Stacy says if you're going through struggles, take that first step in seeking support and seeing a mental health professional like a counselor.
And there is a lot of self-doubt there with queer people, with artists, and definitely with queer artists, where you feel invalid sometimes.
Coming up after the break, we explore the mental health and identity struggles people in the LGBTQ+ community face and how art is helping them find the bigger picture in life. Stay with us. Members of the LGBTQIA+ community are more likely to struggle with their mental health, and this can result in depression, anxiety, PTSD, low self-esteem, stress, and suicidal feelings.
But art can help with expression and acceptance. Studio 10's Nicole Buckman explains.
As Jessica walks around the Lansing Art Gallery, she feels a sense of pride, literally.
And there are so many amazing queer artists that are featured in this show, and I feel honored to be one of them.
Her piece Cheese proudly hangs on the wall, but she tells me that there is meaning behind the strokes of this smile.
As a queer artist specifically, I think a lot about presentation and how you present yourself to the world and how you see yourself internally. There is this very forced grin.
A forced grin, smiling through pain. These are some situations Jessie believes people can relate to, especially those struggling with their mental health.
With queer people, with artists, definitely with queer artists, where you feel invalid sometimes, whether other people are telling you that, whether you are kind of in charge of that conversation.
Isolation and anxiety about their identity often plays into that conversation.
At least I experienced a pressure to find a label. Just figure it out and then that's it. But have that voice in you telling you if you're really anxious about something, that maybe that's not a good idea. Kind of really have to just take charge of having a conversation with that voice rather than that leading you to make every decision.
Jessie takes charge of those struggles and conversations through art.
There's something really special about making something with your hands and having your brain kind of become a little quieter.
Art can be one of many forms to tackle those feelings of depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, lack of identity, and stress. So although Jessie says each person part of the LGBTQIA's journey is different, they should know they're not alone.
Talk to LGBTQIA folks. You can identify in so many different ways, and all of them are valid.
And you can explore and support more LGBTQIA artists at the Lansing Art Gallery and at Rainbow Riot in Old Town.
And there are also resources and support groups through the Salas Center in Lansing.
Thank you so much for joining us for our You're Not Alone special.
If you are ever in a mental health crisis, you can call the suicide hotline at 988 or go to the nearest emergency room. Just remember, you're not alone.